In the heart of an old city stood St. Elspeth's Hospital, a place with a history as long and complex as the city itself. This grand, ancient structure, with its towering spires and Gothic architecture, had seen generations come and go. Its halls were filled with whispers of the past, some harmless, others haunting. One particularly chilling tale is that of the phantom patient. Nurse Lily had been working the night shift for nearly a decade, but nothing could have prepared her for the events of that one fateful night. It began like any other shift, the hum of the fluorescent lights, the distant beeping of monitors, and the occasional moan from a patient in pain. But around midnight, something changed. The temperature in the hallway outside room 407 dropped suddenly, and Lily felt an inexplicable chill run down her spine. As she approached room 407, she saw a figure lying on the bed, covered in shadows. The room was supposed to be empty, as the previous occupant had passed away just a few hours earlier. Lily hesitated but eventually stepped inside, the door creaking ominously behind her. The figure on the bed was a woman, her face obscured by tangled hair, her body frail and skeletal. Lily called out to the woman, but there was no response. She reached out to touch her, but the instant her fingers made contact with the woman's arm, a cold, numbing sensation shot through her body. The woman's head turned slowly, revealing hollow, black eyes that seemed to suck the light out of the room. Lily screamed and stumbled back, but when she blinked, the figure was gone. The following day, Lily recounted her experience to her colleagues, but most dismissed it as a result of exhaustion and stress. However, a few older nurses exchanged knowing glances and whispered about the phantom patient, a specter that haunted room 407. They spoke of similar sightings over the years, always involving patients who had died under mysterious circumstances. Determined to uncover the truth, Lily delved into the hospital's archives. She discovered that room 407 had a dark history. It had once been the operating room of Dr. Abernathy, a brilliant but disturbed surgeon who conducted unethical experiments on his patients. Many of his victims died in agony, their souls allegedly trapped within the room's walls. Lily's research led her to an old janitor, Mr. Whitley, who had worked at the hospital for over 40 years. He confirmed the stories and revealed that he had personally witnessed the phantom patient several times. According to Mr. Whitley, the spirit was that of Dr. Abernathy's last victim, a young woman named Margaret, who had died a gruesome death on the operating table. One stormy night, Lily decided to confront the spirit. Armed with a rosary and a candle, she entered room 407. As the wind howled outside, the temperature plummeted once again. The ghostly figure appeared, more vivid and terrifying than before. Lily recited prayers and pleaded with the spirit to find peace. To her astonishment, the ghost began to weep. The hollow eyes softened, and the figure slowly faded away, leaving behind a sense of calm. The room's oppressive atmosphere lifted, and the temperature returned to normal. Lily felt a profound sense of relief, as if a great weight had been lifted from the hospital. Word of Lily's bravery spread throughout St. Elspeth's, and room 407 was eventually sealed off, deemed too haunted to be used again. Though the phantom patient was never seen again, the hospital remained a place of eerie whispers and unexplained phenomena. Lily continued her work, forever changed by her encounter with the supernatural. Years later, St. Elspeth's Hospital was demolished to make way for a modern medical facility. But those who knew its dark history believed that the spirits of the past still lingered in the new building. And sometimes, on quiet nights, the faint sound of weeping could still be heard, echoing through the halls of the new hospital. St. Margaret's Hospital, built during the Victorian era, was renowned for its state-of-the-art facilities and compassionate care. However, beneath its polished exterior lay a dark secret known only to a few. The fourth-floor west wing, known as Ward C, had been closed off for decades, following a series of mysterious deaths and disappearances. It was said to be cursed, a place where the veil between life and death was perilously thin. Dr. Emily Harding, a curious and ambitious young doctor, had always been intrigued by the story surrounding Ward C. She had heard whispers of ghostly apparitions, strange noises, and the inexplicable feeling of dread that seemed to permeate the air. Determined to uncover the truth, she decided to investigate the ward one evening after her shift. As she made her way up the creaking stairs, Emily felt a growing sense of unease. The hallway leading to Ward C was dimly lit, the flickering lights casting eerie shadows on the walls. She reached the heavy oak door and hesitated for a moment before pushing it open. The air inside was thick and musty, filled with the scent of decay. The ward was a time capsule, untouched since it had been abandoned decades earlier. Dust-covered beds lined the walls, and medical equipment lay scattered haphazardly. Emily felt a shiver run down her spine as she noticed a row of patient records on a nearby desk. She picked one up and began to read. The records detailed the cases of several patients who had been admitted to Ward C, all suffering from severe psychological disorders. What struck Emily as odd was the consistent pattern of sudden and unexplained deaths. The patients had all died within days of being admitted, their bodies found contorted in expressions of sheer terror. As Emily continued to read, she heard a faint, rhythmic tapping sound coming from the far end of the ward. Her heart raced as she moved towards the source of the noise, her flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The tapping grew louder, more insistent, until she reached a small room at the end of the hall. Inside the room, she found an old wooden rocking chair, swaying back and forth as if pushed by an invisible hand. Emily felt a cold breeze brush past her, and the chair stopped abruptly. She shone her flashlight around the room, revealing a series of strange symbols etched into the walls. They seemed to pulse with a dark energy, filling her with a sense of dread. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind her, plunging the room into darkness. Emily's flashlight flickered and died, leaving her alone in the pitch-black room. Panic set in as she fumbled for the door handle, but it wouldn't budge. She heard whispers, soft and menacing, growing louder and more frantic. In the midst of the chaos, Emily felt a cold hand grip her shoulder. She spun around, her eyes wide with terror, but saw nothing. The whispers reached a fever pitch, and she felt a suffocating pressure on her chest. Just as she thought she would lose consciousness, the door burst open, and she stumbled out into the hallway, gasping for breath. Emily fled Ward C, her mind racing with fear and confusion. She reported her experience to the hospital administration, but they dismissed her claims as the result of stress and overwork. Undeterred, Emily continued her investigation, determined to uncover the truth about Ward C. She discovered that the ward had once been used for experimental treatments on mentally ill patients. The treatments, led by a notorious doctor named Dr. Blackwood, had involved cruel and inhumane methods. Many of the patients had died in agony, their spirits unable to find peace. The strange symbols on the walls were part of a ritual meant to contain their vengeful spirits. Emily realized that the only way to end the curse was to perform a cleansing ritual to release the trapped souls. With the help of a local priest, she returned to Ward C, armed with holy water and a book of ancient prayers. Together, they recited the prayers, their voices echoing through the dark, oppressive halls. As they completed the ritual, a blinding light filled the ward, and the air grew warm and calm. The whispers ceased, and Emily felt a profound sense of peace wash over her. The curse had been lifted, and the spirits of Ward C were finally at rest. St. Margaret's Hospital eventually reopened Ward C, and it was transformed into a state-of-the-art psychiatric unit. The stories of the haunted ward became a distant memory, but those who knew the truth remained vigilant, always aware that the past could never truly be forgotten. The old Wingate Asylum had been abandoned for years, its once grand facade now a crumbling ruin. The locals avoided it, claiming it was haunted by the spirits of the patients who had suffered and died within its walls. But for a group of urban explorers, the asylum was the perfect place to seek out thrills and document their adventures. Led by Jake, a thrill seeker with a penchant for the paranormal, the group decided to spend a night inside the asylum. They arrived just before sunset, their cameras and flashlights at the ready. The air was thick with the scent of mold and decay as they entered the main hall, their footsteps echoing in the vast empty space. Jake recounted the asylum's dark history as they made their way through the corridors. Built in the early 1900s, Wingate Asylum had been a place of horror and suffering. Dr. Victor Harrington, the head physician, had conducted cruel experiments on the patients, believing he could cure mental illness through radical and painful procedures. Many patients had died under his care, their spirits said to haunt the asylum. As the group explored deeper into the asylum, they felt an increasing sense of unease. The temperature dropped, and strange noises echoed through the halls. They set up their equipment in what had once been Dr. Harrington's office, hoping to capture evidence of the paranormal. As night fell, the atmosphere grew more oppressive, and the group began to hear whispers and faint cries for help. Around midnight, Jake suggested they split up to cover more ground. Reluctantly, the group agreed, each person heading off in a different direction. Jake made his way to the basement, where the most gruesome experiments had taken place. The air was damp and cold, and the walls were lined with rusted medical instruments. As he walked, he felt a strange pressure building in his head, and the whispers grew louder. In the dim light of his flashlight, Jake saw a figure standing at the end of the hallway. It was a man in a blood-stained lab coat, his eyes dark and hollow. Jake's heart pounded as he realized he was face to face with the ghost of Dr. Harrington. The spirit spoke in a low, menacing voice, accusing Jake of trespassing and disturbing his work. Before Jake could react, he was thrown violently against the wall. Pain shot through his body as he struggled to breathe. The ghost advanced, its eyes burning with rage. Just as Jake thought he would lose consciousness, the figure disappeared, leaving him gasping for air on the cold, damp floor. Meanwhile, the rest of the group was experiencing their own horrors. Sarah, exploring the second floor, heard the sound of a child crying. She followed the noise to a small, dark room and found a young girl huddled in the corner. As Sarah approached, the girl looked up, revealing a face twisted in agony. She screamed and vanished, leaving Sarah shaken and terrified. Mark and Lisa, exploring the East Wing, encountered a series of shadowy figures that seemed to stalk them through the halls. No matter how fast they ran, the shadows were always close behind, whispering their names in sinister tones. They eventually found their way back to the main hall, where they huddled together, too scared to continue. When Jake finally rejoined the group, his face pale and his body trembling, they decided to leave the asylum immediately. They packed up their equipment and hurried to the exit, but the asylum seemed to resist their departure. Doors slammed shut, and unseen forces pushed them back, as if the spirits wanted to keep them inside. With great effort, they managed to escape, stumbling out into the cold night air. They vowed never to return to Wingate Asylum, the horrors they had experienced etched into their memories forever. The footage they captured was eerie and unsettling, filled with ghostly apparitions and strange, disembodied voices. Years later, the asylum was finally demolished, but the land remained cursed. New buildings erected on the site experienced strange phenomena, and workers reported seeing ghostly figures and hearing unexplained noises. The legend of Wingate Asylum lived on, a chilling reminder of the darkness that had once thrived within its walls.